So, Chris, I've read about all the incredible work you've done, Kingmakers of Oakland, reimagining education, equity work across the Bay. But I want to start simple. When someone meets you for the first time and asks, what do you actually do? How do you describe it?
What do I actually do? I'd say, really on many levels, I'm living my dream. I'm blessed in the spirit of where I am in my life to have aligned my passion with my purpose and my profession. And what I do at the end of the day is really help young people kind of draw out their innate greatness so they can actualize everything they've envisioned for themselves. And so, created an organization that centers a group of young people, in particular Black boys, to create the conditions of which they understand who and whose they are. They have access to the necessary social capital, assets within our community to create asset based content that reflects the beauty, brilliance, and innate greatness of our people, our culture, our community, and ultimately themselves so they can take their crowns at their pocket and rock it and really know that whatever they conceive, as long as they believe it, then they can achieve it. And so, Kingmakers of Oakland and myself really is the kind of the steward or the shepherd in creating an organization that centers Black boys for them to actualize their best selves, whatever that may be, is defining for themselves. And so, that's the journey I'm on, and a little bit about what Kingmakers does. We have a whole myriad of different strategies, but at the end of the day, it's a nonprofit organization that was created to improve the educational and life outcomes of Black boys from preschool through PhD.
That's so amazing. It's really inspiring to hear about what you've created and how it's turned into not just a nonprofit, but more of a movement, something that is really impactful. I believe even beyond Bay Area, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
amazing. We'll talk about that more as we continue in this.
Okay.
So imagine everything resets. No kingmakers, no network, no platform. You're starting from zero today. What's the very first move you make to rebuild?
Wow. One of our values and design principles in our ethos is centering Black boys while serving all young people. And so, for me, if we were starting all over, I would center young people. So, provide an opportunity similar to this, where elementary, middle, high school, college age African American males, African males could just be present to begin to envision what it is that they want to do and see in the future. And I would really just kind of curate a set of conversations that would lift up what that future looks like, feels like, sounds like, and then help them scaffold how we reverse engineer from what that future is that they defined on how we manifest that. And so, for me, young people have always been kind of the drivers of our vision. And so, if I was starting from scratch or nothing, I would create a space that young people could be at and just have the audacity to put out what they want and want to be true, and then really help them kind of create the conditions, the systems and structures to manifest that. And
Mhm.
so that's what I would do if I was starting from scratch today.
That's really amazing. It's nice how you know exactly what you would do. And it's very clear that, your path is one that is very, I think, unique, but also it's very well thought through. You've thought so clearly about what to do and how you've done it, and you've worked very hard. So it's immensely inspiring. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
For sure.
So, what's one mindset or skill you'd focus on first, which is like the foundation you think that everything else depends on?
Yeah, the mindset I would focus on really is this a growth mindset. I think even at my age and having gone to community college, undergrad, grad school, having innovated in other people's systems and become an entrepreneur myself, this idea of lifelong learning and that no one makes it anywhere by themselves. And so I think what is important is a growth mindset that allows me to always kind of do this mirror and window work as I embrace life. looking at opportunities, looking at things in the spirit of the mirror. What does it say about me? Where am I at? Where are the opportunities for me to deepen my sense of passion, learning, and simultaneously beginning to kind of look at the window and understand kind of the forest from the trees based upon who I am, whose I am, to understand where I want to go, what I need to learn, who I need to meet, who I need to connect. And so for me, the first step is ensuring that what I know is necessary yet insufficient. And if I take a growth mindset to this aspiration of where I want to be, knowing that I will go farther faster in partnership with community, with people, then I think I start beginning to understand who are those folks I need to connect, set up informational meetings. What do I need to read, learn more about? What do I need to navigate to manifest this vision? And so I think a growth mindset is one of which acknowledging that I don't know everything and that I can go farther faster if I take a learning stance and begin to interview folks that are where I want to be, interview folks that maybe have tried to aspire to that, but maybe have struggled, or folks who don't want to do that. I think help me make a more informed decision on how I want to move forward and manifest whatever it is I may want to have. So I would say, yeah, definitely a growth mindset. And then this idea of if you don't stand for something, you'll go for anything. And that it's really important at the end of the day is that I stand on values and that I practice that I hold myself accountable, that I align with people in my network that also respect and appreciate those values, that just gives me greater strength and groundedness, and then align with folks then that approach things similarly in the spirit of if I associate with other entrepreneurs, other folks that are nested in similar values and have great aspirations, then I'm guilty by association, and I can't but help to ascend because of my values alignment of self and who I'm aligning with that have shared values, and then those folks that have similar aspirations. I can't help but learn from them, given they have similar aspirations and approaches to life. And so those are a few things I would share for folks that are thinking about, how do I manifest or where do I want to go, is just getting clear around kind of the necessary mindset, understanding who and whose you are, what are those values, and what are those approaches to whatever those things may be. And then you just kind of let go, let God, and just move forward with grace, with love and respect.
100%. It's incredibly inspiring to hear about your mindset and the advice that you have also for people who are starting out. I think just like from this conversation, it's taught me also that, networking is so important. Creating a network that enlifts you, that uplifts you,
That's right.
that pushes you closer to your goals rather than farther. I think that's
right.
very important. And seeing that, you've done that and it's served you very well is very inspiring, especially for the next generation. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
So Kingmakers of Oakland has grown into more than just a nonprofit, as we were talking about in the beginning. It's become a movement that's reshaping equity in education. For someone hearing about it for the first time, how do you explain what you're really building and why it matters right now?
Yeah. So the theory of action that we use and why we center Black boys while serving all is this concept developed by John Powell. He's actually a professor at UC Berkeley, formerly the Curran Institute, and he created this concept called targeted universalism. And most folk may be familiar with this concept of the curb effect, meaning if you focus on those folks furthest from opportunity, and you center them and you begin to understand the conditions of which those furthest from opportunity are having to navigate, that may be a little bit different than those folks who were born within the privilege of opportunity, who have access based upon their lived experience, based upon their culture, their socioeconomic status. Then you can begin to address and identify or clear out some of the conditions that are obstacles for some and opportunities for others. And for us, centering Black boys is a strategy, as we understand, in particular education. If you look at the decades of data within public schools in this country, go back to when I was in schools in the 1970s and 80s, to present now in the 2020s, what some of the trends that you begin to see when you disaggregate that data and look at how a one size approach to education doesn't fit all students. And the data of some students shows that historically, for decades, for various reasons, they have not been able to achieve at levels of either what the standard is or maybe compared to other groups for various reasons. The strategy of then them into center and designing a set of strategies for them accelerates their performance in school. This idea of targeted universalism. You want a universal outcome for all, but you have to focus on those who may be located a little bit differently, center a set of strategies for them. It actually accelerates their performance, and a rising tide raises all ships. So as they improve, it actually improves the educational outcomes for all. And so we kind of take that mantra in the spirit of the analogy, the curb effect. When there wasn't curbs, folks who were handicapped or blind would stumble. And so when they created the curb effect, not only did it impact those in wheelchairs, but it also impacted the elderly. It also impacted folks who may have a whole lot in their hand. It made it easier for a specific group, but it actually impacted all. And so this idea of centering Black boys, not because they need fixing or not because there's anything wrong with them, but based on this country's history, which and the country's value system, that not just Black boys, Latino Chicano children, Indigenous children, API, in particular Southeast Asian children, in this lived experience, learn differently many times based on the traditional ways that we teach in schools, are many times not seen as beautiful, brilliant, and possessing innate greatness, but as problems to be fixed. We felt in focusing and centering Black boys and reflecting that they are beautiful, brilliant, and they possess greatness, and developing a set of strategies that help them accelerate not only how they're moving in schools, but also within community, that it was our way to support a group that historically has been marginalized in this country and create content here that's asset-based, that reflects the beauty, brilliance, and innate greatness, not only of them, but the culture that impacts all. And so that's a little bit of why we've centered on Black boys, because of what I experienced as a child in the 70s and 80s when I was raising my sons in the city. The data had not changed. Why we wanted to focus and center Black boys, knowing we don't exclude anyone, but setting a set of strategies that centers those young boys that we call kings, not only helps them, but helps all. And so that's a little bit about our ethos, and why we focus on Black boys.
Yes, that's incredibly inspiring. It's very nice to hear about your perspective on this. It's highly informative as well. So I think a lot of students and just people in general can learn from that. So thank you for sharing.
Right on.
So you've led change both inside institutions and outside of them. What's one lesson you've learned about getting people to believe in a vision before it even exists, either on paper or in results?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the ways that we build will within our community is through storytelling. At the end of the day, although we center Black boys, we're for universal brotherhood and humanity. Yet knowing we all have different entry points, and yet I think one of the greatest gifts that we all have to offer is our diversity and variety as humans. And so sometimes there's times within this culture, though, that we see differences negative or one being better than the other. And we believe if we're creating opportunities through music, through film, through animation, through fashion, and through the arts, that difference can be seen as not something that's bad, but actually something that's good, and draw out the commonalities in all of us, knowing that we're more alike than we are different. And yet the present discourse in this country tends to do very well at othering others and privileging some stories and disadvantaging other stories. And we're like, no, everybody has a story to tell, and we see the value in everybody's story and everybody's culture. And in this country too, we actually privilege some cultures over others. And so for us, in the spirit of how we create this collective will and this sense of we, is through storytelling. And we tend to center the stories of Black boys because many times in this country, the stories that we hear tend to be negative stories. It's always, be it the achievement gap or issues in juvenile justice or mental illness issues, when in actuality, um, all communities are struggling at various levels in that. But if we can lift up through storytelling and share these stories in a way that brings multicultural, intergenerational, cross-sector people together, we can begin to see the humanity in one another and make connections that, although I may be different or look different than you, oh wow, I actually went through some, be it childhood trauma, or went through an experience that is very similar to the experience that we've gone through. And so that's why we believe and have leaned into the music, the film, the animation, the fashion, because we think it's through the arts that creates a place and space where we can see the humanity in one another and begin to heal and make connections that last for generations. Because ultimately, the cure is in our culture. But through television and our public school system, if the culture in these schools is painting one group's culture as all things awesome and glorious, and other people's contributions and culture is negative, then I think it creates these sort of division, or us and them, or they're better than us. And in actuality, that's not our stance. We're trying to level the playing field by sharing the diversity of story and lifting up the beauty, brilliance, and innate greatness, in particular of Black children in this country, as a way to not say it's better, but just to say, hey, listen, as much as there may be negative stories, there's also extraordinary storytelling around survival and accomplishment and greatness and future. So that's the area we err in, and why we do a lot around storytelling, is really to create the through line through all of us.
Wow, that's really incredibly inspiring to hear about how your work and everyone's work at Kingmakers of Oakland is you're utilizing the arts and storytelling to empower and embrace diversity. That's honestly something that is so, I say, authentic in a way to this community that has been built. And I think it's so important as well that it is advocated for and spread throughout many, many communities globally even. So
Yes.
it's really, really amazing to hear about the work that you're doing. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, if everything you do had to be anchored to one non negotiable value, one word you'd never compromise on, what would it be and why?
Yeah, the one word that we should not compromise, which we're in extraordinary times where I think we are compromising this as a nation, as a country, and a people, is love. Um, and when we can begin to condition ourselves to love unconditionally and see the humanity in all of us, then yeah, then we'll help one another in ways that, regardless of neighborhood or how you identify, that the anchor value is love, and you see the humanity in one another as you do self or family in others. And I think this country has really moved away from that, based on this sort of capitalistic kind of opera singer mentality of just me, I. And so we need to move back to more indigenous values of we, and the collective responsibility of all and us. And I think you can do that when we lead and understand the power and possibility of love. And that takes time, it takes grace, but it is the superpower. If
Mm-hmm.
you can lead with love and create the conditions of which we love each other, and not some, sloppy, romantic love, although there's a place for romantic love. I'm talking about a holistic agape love
Yes.
of, you are my brother, you are my neighbor, you are my fellow human, and I love you, even if I don't agree with you. That we would never do anything to compromise or hurt one another. I think we need to teach that in schools. We need to practice that in community. We need to support that in philanthropy and in the private sector. And if we were practicing that, I think we'd be in a very different world, in this country and globally. And so the anchor value that I would practice really is agape love.
Mm-hmm. That's really inspiring. Can I ask, what exactly is agape? Is it?
Yeah, agape, I mean, there's forms of love. Agape love is just that conditioning yourself to love
Okay.
unconditionally. It's not the romantic love.
Hmm.
And again, not taking nothing away from romantic love, yet in the context of service,
Hmm.
um, grounding yourself in this sort of agape love of like, I'm going to help my brother. I'm going to
Yes.
support my sister. I'm
Hmm.
going to support my non binary community, that they're. It is this the conditioning yourself to really give unconditionally,
Hmm.
because if someone doesn't have what you have or is not as fortunate or
Hmm.
needs support, you're moving with the spirit of love. And
Yes.
so it's this
Yes.
connectiveness that really binds all of us together, that I
Hmm.
think we need to cultivate and perpetuate more of that. And I think if we were doing that, we would address homelessness, we would
Hmm.
address crime, we would address a lot of these things that we struggle with very differently,
Hmm.
because we see the humanity and the connectiveness in each of us. And so that's my
Yes.
interpretation of agape love.
100%. It is incredibly inspiring to hear about agape love and what it is and your mindset on it and your perspective. I think your perspective is very valuable, and if half of the leaders in the US thought of it in that way, and if they said agape love for their non-negotiable value, I think the world would be a very different place. And I 100% agree with you. I think that if we all cultivate and embrace this agape love, then things would be so different. And
Yeah,
I think we would all learn as a community together. We would all really learn, and we would be connected in a different way, in a way that, that like best friends are connected. Everyone would be, it would be like we would all embrace our authenticity and our diversity.
that's right.
And I think it's really amazing that that is one of the values that I think, just from speaking with you, it's like, it's one of your values, and also Kingmakers of Oakland's.
That's right.
Yes. And also it really reflects in your leadership style, I think, too, because I know you like briefly touched over how like you use that in leadership as well, because that is how you connect with people that you work with, right?
That's right.
So
That's
it's
right.
very nice to hear about that. And I think that so many people, leaders, students, people from all backgrounds, people all the way in another country, can also learn from that. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So when things get tough or you need inspiration, what song or artist keeps you moving forward, and why?
Wow. So many artists. I mean, I actually think, as I shared earlier, the cure is in our culture, that music in many levels has been my best friend. And no matter what situation I've gone through, being able to find a song, a past or present, that spoke to whatever that feeling is. So, I think from the spirit of hip hop, I mean, Kendrick Lamar is somebody that I really resonates with me in the spirit of true hip hop. The next generation of hip hop. I think as it relates to like old R&B, the OJ's, Curtis Mayfield, Frankie Beverly. Those are R&B artists. Maybe in musicians, thinking about Miles Davis, John Coltrane. As far as like instrumental artists, I just went to a Robert Glasper concert, who's more of a contemporary kind of Quincy Jones, a jazz musician that features all sorts of amazing artists. So yeah, I mean, artists in the musical form definitely impact me. In the physical form of painting, Basquiat, his crown is similar to the crown that we rock,
Mm-hmm.
our secondary logo, and I think about just different artists as well. But music, man, so many different genres of hip hop, of R&B, of soul, of gospel, of jazz are definitely the genres of music, and probably just way too many artists to name.
Mm-hmm.
And I just acknowledge too, we've made 5 albums here, so I acknowledge, I love too the fact that I can listen to my sons who are on all the artists. Excuse me, are all of our albums as artists. So our Black Love album or our
Mm-hmm.
Black Joy album, when I get down or whatever, I'll just play those songs, knowing that I know all of the artists. I remember them when they're little people, and now they're young adults, and so those are some of the
Mm-hmm.
artists I would lift up.
That's so amazing. I think like just listening to you speak about music and songs and artists shows how passionate you are about this and how, it really flows through Kingmakers of Oakland and what you guys do and what your mission is. So it's really amazing. Music is something like so amazing. How would you describe music? What's your like thought process on music? Can I ask?
Yeah. And I'm not an artist. So I'll just say, I mean, it's a frequency of love. I mean, I think listening to things and that frequency, that vibration that just speaks to your heart and in words that can't even describe. I mean, just it'll get your attention, kind of spirit, mind, and body. And then if the beats are dope and are fluid and are dynamic, that kind of grabs your soul and your spirit. And then if the words are conscious or provocative in the spirit of, again, alignment with values too, that just deepens the ability to let go and to be one with that vibration. And so for me, music is just that. It's a frequency of vibration that provokes thought, movement, joy, celebration, energy. And so just I think those artists that create and curate music, that's a superpower for folk to actually know how to create content, be it beats, rhymes, lyrics, musical sound, then that makes people feel good or provokes them to be sad, happy, glad. I think that's a superpower that should be respected, valued, and taught. And so, I'm not grateful for all of the artists that have developed that skill, that craft. And we have a center where we have, two state-of-the-art recording studios that if anyone ever is interested in coming in and leveraging, definitely would welcome that to the space. But those are some of the things I would lift up.
100%. That's incredibly inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, for the next question, what's something about you that would surprise almost everyone? Like, wait, that's what Chris Chatmon is really about.
Um, I don't. Yeah, I think given where I'm at in my journey, actually, what I in terms of the alignment of passion, purpose, profession, I don't think there's anything surprising. Now, I've been working with young people since I was 13. I've been an educator, kindergarten through 12th grade. I've been a principal. I've run YMCA's. I've been a case manager. Now, an entrepreneur running my own business. So on that, I think there's nothing that's surprising per se. I think it may be now in the spirit of kind of my health scare of things that I didn't do that much that now I'm leaning into around birding, around puzzling, around archery, around those things that really helped me deepen my mindfulness that I just didn't find as much time for that I liked. Kind of the little, the nerdy aspect of me, I didn't lean into that or make as much time. That now I'm realizing this evolution of me, who has been a servant leader all his life, is that now it is time for me to make more time, given how much I have given outwardly to my own, mindfulness and wellness, to spend time making more puzzles, to spend more time doing birding, and which I thoroughly enjoy, and going out and using my bow with archery. I'm not a hunter, but I love shooting targets, but I love being in the outdoors. And just that, I think, giving myself permission and reconditioning myself to spend more time around how I practice mindfulness in this next part of my journey. And as I let go, really passing more batons to the next generation to leverage what I've been blessed to do, to have access to the facility, to have more leadership and ownership of taking this organization to the next level. I really believe now's the time for me to let go, start that phase of letting go, not like a turn off and off the switch, but begin to spend more time in those things that I've grown to know, love, and really will help me live longer and spend more time in those areas as I begin to let go of some of the work pieces, which I know and have loved as well. But as my body ages, it's important for me to now spend more time in these practices of mindfulness, as I realize that my body doesn't hold stress quite the same way as it did when I was younger. And so it's okay now to let go, to the next generation, provide opportunities as I lean into these other practices of spirit, mind, and body.
100%. You've made so many amazing achievements throughout your life. You've made so much impact, and now you're taking time to reflect as well. Of course, you're still working very hard. You know, you're still very busy, and you're doing so much, which is incredibly inspiring. But it's very nice to know that you're also aware of what you need, also, and you're taking time to prioritize yourself as well. And I think that's something so important that so many students can learn from. Can I ask, do you have any advice for like what we could do in like our younger like times when we're still students, or when we're still starting out? Because I feel like right now a lot of us are ambitious, and we have so much passion and energy, and we just want to go forward. We want to work so hard towards something, and then that sometimes leads to burnout, right? So like, from your experiences, do you have any advice on how we could balance our lives better?
Yeah, and I appreciate the question. In my own evolution, I mean, I was one. I think my superpower has always been vision, and my out of my own trauma, my tenacity came. Then, like once I had a vision, I was all in, and I think the piece I would say, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yet the balance as you're all in and manifesting your vision for whatever it is always making sure that you have balance in spirit, in mind, and body. And so I think making sure that those things that are greater than yourself, that you find a spiritual practice, be it in something that is greater than you. And it doesn't have to be a religion per se. It could just be in relationship to nature. It could be relationship to other factors that are outside of what you can control, that remind you of how fragile life is, and to keep your faith strong. I think that's something I would always encourage all of us, young people and old people, is develop that, spend time in developing that spiritual groundedness. So as you go through the seasons of life, you won't get too high or get too low, but you maintain balance. I think in the spirit of mind, making sure that the mind is a muscle in many ways, and you want to continue to have this growth mindset where you're learning, you're developing, you're growing. And so I think that yearning for learning also strengthens and grounds you in your evolution to ascension. That the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And so I think what I would share is finding balance in the cultivation and development of spirit, finding balance in the cultivation and the evolution of knowledge of self, your mind, and then the body. Like, doesn't matter how good those two things are doing, if your body is not right, then it's all for naught. So also making sure that you're eating right, you're sleeping right, that you're taking care of this physical edifice that holds that conduit connection to spirit and body, excuse me, and mind. And so just making sure that when you're young, you almost have this invincible self, but those things add up, and so just as much as you're taking care of the physical body and practicing from strength conditioning to breathing to your proximity to outdoors. I would say those three areas, that as you continue to ascend and go through life's seasons, that if you're grounded in spirit, mind, and body, that no matter how high you get, you will stay humble enough to embrace and love that, but not get too caught up in that, because that also you get too close to the fire or the light, you can burn and crash. And you get too dark, you can get lonely, and other things can happen. And so making sure though that you always stay grounded and are learning and developing the areas of spirit, mind, and body, I think just keep you whole, keep you grounded, and embrace all of the obstacles that will come, be it good, bad, indifferent. That you just don't, you just stay the course. And so I would just encourage young folks to continue to grow, develop in those areas. um, that would be my advice.
100%. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think you're again, your perspective, I want to reiterate that I think it's very inspiring and something that is informative, and it's grounded in a perspective of experience. You've had all of these experiences, and I think that now, starting off as students, we can really learn from that, and we can start our careers knowing that we are able to first prioritize ourselves, and then after that, we're able to do a lot of different things out there if we have faith and we believe.
That's
And
right.
it's also so amazing to like just hear about how much you believe and how much faith you have. And I've always heard that like be delusional to the extent that like it's going to happen. Like, what would you say on that? Like, do you think that it's really important to dream?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, for me, vision, no matter what was going on here today that was happening to me physically, mentally, spiritually, if I had an audacious vision, that to me, it kept my head up. It kept me looking to not being defined by the specific moment in time, but actually seeing these moments of time as opportunity to learn and grow and heal, that would propel me closer to or get me ready to that audacious vision. So I think one of the biggest first steps is having an audacious vision. And I would even say, once you come up with that audacious vision, sit with that for a moment, come back to it, and then expand it. Like, knowing that you actually want to have a vision almost to the point where it's unachievable, just to keep you aspiring, knowing that you're not compromising on spirit, mind, and body, but just that audacity, just it helps you make meaning of all the complexities or whatever season you may be in, when you can always keep your head up and look to that future, that north star, so to speak. And so, yeah, if you don't have that, you can get disillusioned or get caught up and defined in a moment. And those moments sometimes, yeah, can be fragile. So I would always encourage folks, have an audacious vision, and don't, no matter what anybody says, you have to at least give yourself permission to believe that it's possible. And because if you don't start with the possibility of that happening, it's going to be hard for anyone else to believe that it can happen. And or I just think human nature, then the tone of what you talk, you're talking at a deficit frequency, so you're not going to manifest. The words that you use are not going to allow you to manifest. What you're saying in terms of the meaning, other people are not going to be able to then support that. So if you start with and put forward an audacious vision, then you align spirit, mind, and body. You align your steps to manifest that. And if you don't get it, the opportunity is, you're doing a mirror moment. All right, what were my due difference? What did I learn about that? How do I, make adjustments still to, maybe that vision isn't here. Maybe I move it over here. But gotta have an audacious vision. I would start with that.
That's really amazing. So many, I want to say young people, but I think just people in general also can really learn from that, because I think right now, in times of like, I want to say like technological advancements like AI, but I think just in general, like just with so many advancements, there's so little hope in this world. Like, I would say from my perspective as students, there are so many people that are negative, and it's just like it really, like lowers you. It makes you feel like it makes you want to believe less. And I think that it's so important to have that like light of hope, to know that it's going to happen, to have the audacity, as you said. And I think like what you just said is honestly like gold advice, like literally gold. And I hope so many people see this, because like that was amazing. I think if all students dream like they did when they were 5 years old, if they continue to do that their whole lives, then they'll be able to do the things that people said that you can, because like, as I think you said this, but everyone had to start. Like, there was always a first person that started, right? And if like you don't believe, then who's going to, right?
That's right.
So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So for the final question, how do you see the next generation redefining what it actually means to succeed?
Well, I tell you, I am very excited about the next generation, on so many different levels. I think the next generation always has kind of this new opportunity, to learn from those who came before them and make adjustments to ideally, continue to help us with our ascension. I think the next generation, on many levels, I think the balance, kind of work-life balance. I think, the listening to young, they have a different approach. I'm a little bit old school in the sense of, kind of one job for your life, you work hard and then you retire. I think things that I'm seeing that the next generation already are valuing that was different than my generation is more work-life balance of like, okay, hey, listen, I do need to have a job, yet it can't compromise, my wellness, or it can't compromise my ability to want to travel and do these other things. And so I think I would just encourage them. Yeah, it's like life is just that, about balance, and who you are isn't defined about by what you do in terms of professionally. It's kind of holistically, and so I would just encourage them to continue to move with that balance, but also in the spirit of addressing some of the things that I think we are moving away from in this present society, that is valuing folks that may not have been born with privilege or who have access to these opportunities. How do we continue to support our brothers and sisters that are less fortunate and or maybe didn't have access to these things? And so just would encourage young folk that those answers and those solutions lie with them, and to look to what has been done in the past and carry that forward in areas that have worked, and in areas where it didn't, update the formula. And I think if they continue to stay grounded in cultivating and developing their creative and imaginative spirit, then they'll be able to come up with these sort of audacious ideas to support all as well. And so, yeah, I've great hopes with the next generation. Just given my sons what they're doing in the field, folks like yourself and what you're doing. Yeah, I feel we're in great hands, and actually have more faith and confidence in the younger folk than folks in my peers and older. I think it's time. Yeah, I think our generation doesn't know how to let go and ensure that not just one person they're passing the baton to, but the 50, 100, and 1,000 folk they should be really consciously ensuring that they're giving the reins to earlier. And so that to say that I'm excited about what's to come for the next generation.
Wow, it's okay. It's very, first of all, inspiring to see how much hope you have, and how you're not really hope, but also like, you're confident that the next generation will do good. And as you kind of said, they have like their own values, like the next generation is prioritizing different things like work-life balance. And honestly, like, I think we are also learning a lot from your generation, which has been really amazing. Of course, not everyone in my generation has had the opportunity to learn from people, which is why amazing organizations like Kingmakers of Oakland, is helping with that, and helping with creating a more inclusive environment and embracing diversity. And I think it's so amazing. And I think that this next generation is going to have an amazing life, because there's already been so many improvements, and there's so much more to work on. And I think that you're definitely passing the baton on to the right generation. So it'll be amazing. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today. You are a very inspiring person and leader, and advocate for diversity and inclusion, and everything that all the advice that you've shared has been immensely informative, and I'm sure it will be impactful to many students that watch this, and just young people in general. Do you have any final words or last minute advice?
I mean, just thank you for you. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for doing research. Thank you for, finding your voice, and not just settling on the power, promise, and possibility of your voice, but curating and creating spaces for other young people to lift up their voices. Because I think once young people find their voice and understand their power, yeah, the only thing stopping them is them. And so the fact that you took a moment to align your passion and purpose and profession as you continue to ascend is powerful, is noteworthy, and anything that we can do to help you with your ascension, please know that Kingmakers of Oakland is a partner. But congratulations to you and your team for all the work that you're doing, because I believe at the end of the day, young people are who they see. They're what they hear, and they're what they say. And so you're hitting all three of those things. So just kudos to you and your team.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time today. And thanks for tuning in to KFN.